Hello, my friends. I am your friendly neighborhood Tenkaichi, Pookie7, and this is the Tenkai Talk. This week has been one of the weeks that you just want to say, oh boy. And these are one of these weeks that I really want to say, oh boy. There's a lot happening that I'm sort of involved with and not involved with. So let's get down to what I'm involved with. Okay? This week, from what most people do not know that just happened this week, or rather this past week, was that I've learned that my uncle of one of my uncles passed away, and he was 84 years old. He lived in LeCompte, Louisiana, and it is nowhere near the troubled areas where the flood is. Thank God for that, because from what I've learned, the funeral will be held next week. Next Friday, I should say. And since, well, my cousin left because they're going to have the funeral that coming Friday. So she left a few hours after the fact that, all her plans were moved up to this week. Now you're probably wondering, how am I involved with this? Well, from one, he is part of my family. He was one of my my lesser known uncles. And on top of that, well, we're kind of close, but not quite close. Or not as close as I'd like to have been with him. But, excuse me if I'm yawning a lot. It's just very, very heavy about this subject. But as I was saying, this happened not too long ago, about, say, a week prior to this. And I've heard that, he was... The last time I actually spoke to him, it was about like a few weeks back in like mid-July. And it's by accident, because I was calling my cousin. Like I said, if I'm doing a lot of yawning, I must apologize for that. It's been one of them weeks. As I was saying before, the last time I actually spoke to him was about before August, like mid-July. And he sounded great on the phone. We talked for a while. We caught up on a few things. He seemed happy to hear me, so, I figured, okay, well, it sounds alright. He sounded like he was doing good and everything else. Then we come into a month of August, and now that August is nearly over, we got about a week and a half until September comes in, and, well, we heard the news that he passed away. And it was so sudden because, I just finished talking with him, and he sounded great. It was one of those kind of feelings that, like, it basically I was just shocked. I really was shocked to hear that he passed away. So the one thing I just said was, wow, I never knew he passed away. And it's so sudden too, because he sounded like, like he was, Grade A. I'm doing well. I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. Thanks for calling, though. So, um, the only thing I could do, and I'm saying this now, the only thing I could do at this time was, well, compose a poem. And the only thing I did was made a two-page poem for my uncle. And I did it in the sense that he had final words for his family before he passed on. So I made this poem, in which what I'm going to do is after the funeral, I will actually post it onto my Facebook. Now, I've always shared it to my writing group that I'm a member of, but I've never actually posted it on my main page. So probably right after, I'll say the 26th, because that's when they're holding the funeral. After that, I will actually post it to my Facebook, and therefore, it'll go to my Twitter. I may do a video off of what I said. Like I said, I may do a video. I'm not certain, but I may do a video of the poem in question that I wrote for my late uncle. So, therefore, it's not the first time I've actually written a poem for someone who passed away. Because mainly, it's like, that's the only time I actually do write poems, strangely. When someone passes away, or, it never is like something happy. It's just usually something terrible or something thought-provoking, That's how I am with poems. Generally, I do like I do like to write poems, but only in a state in which I feel I need to. So, yeah. Otherwise, I'm alright. I haven't bawled. I haven't mourned. That's one thing I haven't done. Because, as I said, it was a big shock to me. So, I don't know how that felt. Maybe or maybe not, I might not have to bawl my eyes out. But I did do a poem on behalf of my condolences. So, perhaps when they read it, I might check my Facebook. There's so many things that might happen. So I'm just going to say, okay. I mean, it's a beautifully done poem. I'll just say it like that. And it's just something I had to say because I kept hearing this over and over and over and over and over again, because most people say this right after a death. And the one thing I just can't stand hearing was just, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And the one thing that led to that idea was like, please stop saying that. I mean, the man lived, when a man lives a life from the time they're born to the time that their death is upon them, but they live their life to the point where it's inspiring enough to where it's okay that they pass on, but with, they pass on, but they don't feel terrible about it. They're at peace with themselves. That's what I don't mind. And then people sometimes say, when they hear about it, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's what led me to that. And I got to say, don't. It happens. Because death is a part of life. So, hey, from one guy who has been through plenty a funeral and just borderline got sick of it, that's how I honestly feel. I kind of feel like blackjack, you know. By the way, I'm drinking Dr. Pepper. Yeah, it's because doing this podcast in this kind of state, I need a little something to just perk me right up, you know. So that's the only thing that's happening in my life right now. Otherwise, well, what's happening in my life right now is of no real big consequence. It really isn't. So, moving on to the happenings of this week. Besides the Rio Olympics still going on and stupidity happening, we're trying to get away from the stupid shit that's already happening in politics and shit like that. So, what's been going on in the world of the gaming industry or the gaming community? First off, let's talk about Konami. Oh, Konami. Let's see, you're making out a Metal Gear game that is not really considered part of Metal Gear, but yet you want to make it survival horror. Yeah. Well, Konami, since you're nothing but a bunch of suits now, and almost just about at death's door kind of company right now. Let's see, you have already worked out pachinko machines, and now you're doing a quote-unquote 4-player survival horror game, Metal Gear game called Metal Gear Survive. Let's see, Metal Gear Survive. What can I say about it? I've seen a bit of what it looks like, and I'd say how many idiots are just going to start screaming their heads off and keep saying fuck Konami, blah blah this, blah blah that, besides some of the people I know that will constantly say fuck Konami. I'm not one of them people who will say that, because I'm more about the golden age of a company that did good at one point in their life, not the bad. Because if you're going to point on everything bad about it, then therefore you shouldn't be a gamer if you're going to just point out the only bad that any company has ever done. But I can say, yeah, I don't see the point of getting all blown out of proportion, you know, ulcers and shit like that. Because, oh hey, we got a new Metal Gear game, and it's gonna play like Left 4 Dead. I mean, I remember I saw Stan Bergman, and he stated best when he did a short and sweet review of it. He basically said this: it was Left 4 Dead with Metal Gear skins. That's all it is. That's all it's going to be. And it's supposed to be an alternate reality of... It's an alternate reality sequel of Ground Zeroes, which is Metal Gear Solid 5. All I can say is, you won't see me try to play it or, blow a gasket about it just because it's all front just to make some more money. This generation of the company is all about the money. They're not about the game. They don't care if the game is going to be shit. But they are going to do it because they need the money. And they don't care if it's a popular franchise. They will do it for money. Sadly, because of everything that's happened with Konami, you lost 2 people. You lost Hideo Kojima, who was the brainchild of the series to begin with. And then you lost another person who basically just went the route because of Keiji Inafune. And that person is Koji Igarashi. Koji Igarashi was pretty much the brainchild of Castlevania. And he made a spiritual successor called Bloodstained. And what he's doing is he's doing the same thing that basically Inafune is doing. He's trying to branch out into his own business, trying to go past Mega Man. That's what Inafune was trying to do, going past Mega Man, trying to make a successor to Mega Man. That was the main thing about Mighty Number 9. It was basically a successor of Mega Man. Or trying to make a successor of Mega Man, a spiritual successor. That's the same thing with what Koji Igarashi is doing. He took the risk, started Kickstarter. He went as far as put it out on Steam. And to some players, they tried the Castlevania successor, Bloodstained. And there was nothing but positive reviews on it. Now, of course, with that kind of feedback, then it will more than likely get blown into a full game. But hopefully it won't be doing the same. But hopefully it won't fall into the trap as with Keiji Inafune's plan with Mighty Number 9, which is spread the money too wildly into different projects, and not keeping everything in task with just that one project. And if that one project succeeds, then it goes into this and this and this. Hopefully with Igarashi, he will basically do it right, which is keep the money where it's supposed to be with the project itself, not let it be spent no other way than towards the main project. Make sure that all the bugs are checked out. Make sure that this is going on. Make sure that everything is up to snuff before they actually decide to make the full game. So Metal Gear, it's just like with Capcom. It's a dying breed. Metal Gear is pretty much a dying breed, just like with Capcom's hits like Resident Evil and Street Fighter, because they no longer have Mega Man. Because since they lost Inafune, some people say Inafune, but it's Inafune. Since they lost him, well, with him gone, Mega Man is gone. So, therefore, it's the same thing. With Kojima gone, so is Metal Gear. And Metal Gear, at one point, used to be a very good game. It was tactical espionage. That's all it really was. And it started its humble beginnings on the MSX, then it went to the NES. And after that, Made a beeline to the PlayStation. Been there ever since. But as I said before, I'm not gonna be mad about Konami like others would be like, oh, all up shit crazy and whatnot just because I don't like that's all I'm hearing. I mean, this is YouTube, mind you, so all you're gonna hear. That's all you're gonna hear. You're gonna hear Rabbit. You're either gonna hear Rabbit fanboys state how many people state their hatred, this big ass boner hatred for Konami, of now Konami, instead of like, okay, you know why they're doing this, but you don't care because you have a big ass boner hatred for Konami. Big fucking deal. It's kind of like with Nintendo. Nintendo's not the same Nintendo as we grew up with, because let's see, they still have Shigeru Miyamoto, but they lost key players like Gunpei Yokoi and Satoru Iwata. And, Shigeru Miyamoto, he's still there, but how long will that be until he kicks? And the only thing Nintendo has on hand that they can still work with is, from what I know, they have very few games that are coming out. One in particular I did play, say, this morning was Kirby, the new Kirby game. If I were to open this up like so, you're going to hear a bit of it. Kirby Planet Robobot. That's right. You heard it there first. Anyway, yeah, that's Planet Robobot. Kirby Planet Robobot. That's the newest Kirby game that just recently came out, and I played the demo of it. The demo seemed pretty good. It made me want to just actually get the full game. Now it's kind of like this. Nintendo, it's just like with any other company. They have to think about the money. They don't really have to think about the money, but that's not the case here. Not only do they have to think about the money, but some of them are kind of thinking about, like, say, what they did for Metroid. Instead of making another good Metroid game, they made Federation Force, which they know is going to suck. They know it's going to bomb, but they have to make something because money. They don't have people that actually do, have vision. But they lack vision. I shouldn't say they have vision. They have vision, but they lack it. The only good people that were there are no longer there. The ones that basically just, they were for, they thought about the best for Nintendo, even though where it was going, it just didn't come out through, but it did what it was supposed to do. Now Nintendo, as you remember from last week, took down the Metroid remake AM2R, which is another Metroid 2 remake. And it was made by Dr. M64. And I happen to have it. I happen to have a copy on hand. And the way I see it is, I'm just gonna basically play it out as a review. Because it's not like I don't like Metroid, but I was never into Metroid. So there you go. And there was another game that was recently taken down, and it was a Pokemon fan game. Now, this Pokemon fan game was actually done in the same sense that AM2R was. Because it was done with love, care, and devotion to the series. It wasn't basically made as a threat to Nintendo, but they took it down because they didn't want Nintendo to get on them because of, cease and desist, just like AM2R was. And I think what they did was, they did what Nintendo is supposed to do. And we all remember how Nintendo was back in the day. Nintendo was indeed ahead of its time. They were the type that pumped out games like nobody's business, only because they had friendly competition with Sega. And I think that was kind of the best thing that ever happened back in the mid 80s to mid 90s. But it was the best thing that ever happened, because Nintendo and Sega were both neck and neck with each other within, releases. There was the Nintendo Entertainment System. And then for Sega, there was the Sega Master System. Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. And then they bumped up by doing Sega CD 32X. And then all Nintendo had was Game Boy, Game Gear. Game Boy, Game Boy Advance. Game Gear was Sega. And Nintendo 64. Sega had Sega Saturn and the Sega Dreamcast, which was the last good system that was ever made by Sega. On Nintendo, we have the GameCube, the Nintendo Wii, the Nintendo 3DS, the Nintendo 3DS XL, because yes, 2DS, 3DS, XL, it's all the same. It's just a glorified 3DS, and then you have the Nintendo Wii, which was a super glorified 3DS with a Wii. That's really all it was. But I can see what they were going for. Nintendo was basically just trying to stay on top of things. They're trying to keep doing this and this and this and this and this, even though they had it rough. Nintendo was going on strong. Now Nintendo somehow fired off with the cease and desist of this new Pokemon game. And I can see why, because of Pokemon Sun and Moon. I can kind of understand why they did it, but I can also understand why the creators just took it down. It's like, yeah, well, we don't want to try and do anything against the series itself. We're just showing this is how we like to say thank you for Pokemon. This is our way of, showing what we can do for the series. So, therefore, when you think about it like that, it's rough for those who like to make fan games. I mean, think about it. The Mario hacks that have been, that many many few who have done Mario hacks. They're all at Super Mario SMW Central. And I happen to have a few Mario hacks on hand, but you know me, I'm not a Mario hack player. I'm a Let's player. I'm not a Mario hack player. I play games that are just obscure to the point in which they need to be, in which they are obscure to a sense of why it is obscure. Whether it's modern day or it's retro, that's where my theme lies with obscure. Like, it wasn't known, but it's there and it should be known. I'm just there to give that spotlight, just to say, hey, I'm the one of the people who actually give a damn for games like these. And the same thing I say for Nintendo. I can see what they're trying to do, but at the same time, why they do it makes no damn sense. So the only thing I can say is, don't hate Nintendo. It's the same thing as don't hate Konami. Because all these companies are suffering. In some way, they are suffering. All the known companies that we've known about since the 80s, they're all suffering in some way. And there are two options. You can buy their stuff or you can not buy their stuff. That means you can, buy their products or not buy the products. You don't have to get all twisted and out of shape just to say, oh, hey, I don't like this because that's your opinion if you don't like it. That's fine if you don't like it. But don't let this, destroy you as a fully blown gamer. I mean, there are some games that we all remember back in the day that we used to play, and it didn't matter who made it. This is long before the internet became overblown with, crazy ass fanboy reviews and shit like that there. Yes, I'm talking about AVGN, Irate Gamer, and overblown and out of proportion and whatnot. Because look, not every game had their time in the sun. And it didn't matter who made it, it was because we had we had the core consoles. Nintendo, the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo, and the like. And we only played it because, well, it was there. It wasn't about popularity. It's just, it was there. And whether we got it or our parents got it for us, we only played it because, oh, it's handed to us, let's try it out. If it stank, we know what to do with it. Just stop playing it. And then there are people out there who just say, if it stinks, I should really just give it a go. Maybe I might like it, force yourself into liking what you don't like. Aside from that, there's no need to really blow yourself out of proportion over one game. You don't need to. It's silly. I mean, there are games that I don't mind playing just because of the following. I like to put my own take on it. And just to say I did it. If nothing else, just for those two reasons. It's not to prove anything. Because I have nothing to prove as a gamer. I mean, if it's... I mean, the way I see it is, if it's too hard I do something about it. I play it on my terms. If it's not going to play fair, I play it on my terms. I mean that's my rule. If the game doesn't play fair, why should I? That's my main rule. I mean, if it's on a level, fine. If it's not on a level, okay. I'm basically just going to pull out all the stops to beat the game. Or use whatever means necessary to beat the game. Either way, it's going to get beaten. Simple as that. My point is, as a Let's Player, my perspective is this. I'm not taking sides on who's right and who's wrong. That's not my job. That's not part of what I do as a Let's Player. My job as a Let's Player is to simply play a game, provide side commentary to go along with the game that I'm playing, to provide much of that side commentary while I'm playing this game and share my point of view with said game as I'm going through this from start to finish. And I'm not going to basically give that up because of, oh hey, I don't like this because it's made by the... Yeah, you know what? They're playing games that have been made by certain companies. Some I tend to not pay attention to. Because mainly in a community in which just about anyone who is anyone has ever played this or has some kind of connection to it, I don't play it. It's like Dark Souls. I don't play Dark Souls. I'm not a Souls player. Because anyone has played some kind of version of Souls, like Demon Souls or Dark Souls. They can have it. I don't want it. If I'm actually going to do like something long and story inducing, I'm going to do Dragon's Dogma. You know, it's only right. You know, it still has that theme of medieval fantasy, but I'm not going to be stuck in one place all the goddamn time just to make progress. I mean, I'm stuck in this one area. I had to backtrack and do all this stuff. And just to be on the clear side, I'm not saying anything bad to anyone who's a Souls player. But to me, I gotta do something more. I can't be in a place in which it's gonna be dark, dreary, and dingy, and it's just gonna be depressing the living shit out of me. I mean, setting. You gotta have a certain setting so you know everything will flow. It's just like being an artist. That's what you are. That's what gamers are really these days. And being either you do a playthrough or a let's play, you are basically painting a picture of what this game means to you, or what the series itself means to you. That's what you're doing. But don't let your hatred go as far as saying that I don't want to play this no more because it pisses me off. No, you don't have to play the series that led to this. You can play the earlier series and stop right there to where you don't have to play it to the point it all changed from there. You don't. Like I will eventually do Metal Gear Solid Revengeance. I mean, not Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. I don't know why I mentioned Solid. I will eventually do Metal Gear Rising, but I ask that nobody hates me for it because I'm just doing it. Just because it is the only Metal Gear game I don't mind doing. It's the same thing for Activision and what they did to the port of Marvel Ultimate Alliance. And I'm going to point this out. If I do the Steam version of Ultimate Alliance, it's gonna stay. And my feelings toward the series is it's just gonna stay technically unbiased, because my point is I'm playing a game, and that's the focus. Me playing a game and giving out my commentary about it, sharing my view of it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not going to go as far as, oh, I hate A, B, C, D, and F, G, because it's like, yeah, to the fans, okay, so it disappointed you, but if you don't want to play it, then don't play it. Simple as that. You don't play it just because it didn't carry the spirit or whatnot. You know, I said, so what? You don't have to play it? Then don't buy it. Most people are too anal about that. That's the sad thing. Most people are too anal about video games sometimes. I mean, some people take it a bit too far. Me, I don't mind playing a good video game. Post it on YouTube. And see how much farther I go until I'm done with it, or I've reached a good stopping point to where I have to make a change into what I'm going to do with my scheduling. And most of you who have been long time viewers and subscribers on my channel know that is my system. It's like if a game gets too long, I have to take a break from it. I will eventually come back to it when I'm done with something else. But when it gets too long, and I know it's getting too long, I have to play something else before burnout hits me. That's the reason why I switch from games, from this to something else, because I don't want to get burned out. And I know I've done a lot of games. I mean, that would explain why you haven't seen much of a Sayuki Journey West, because, like I said, it's one of those games that might get me burnout. Just because it is going to be long, and it's going to be like, oh, I have to do this, and I have to do this, and if I have to use this, I will have to use this. You know, it's something like I have to put in a lot of thought into. It's not like I don't like the game, but it's something that I have to, like, really just sit down, think about the difficulty and how it's going to just slowly ramp up to where, oh, you have to do this, and you have to make sure that this character does not die. Because that's the whole thing with that. That's the whole thing with Sayuki. It has this Fire Emblem thing. It has this Fire Emblem Shining Force thing. That you cannot, above all things, let your head character die, or else it's just game over. And that's the reason why you haven't seen much of Sayuki, because I've been doing, some practicing on a few stages. Let me tell you, some of the stages, they can be rough. So I might, I might put in the code just to basically keep my characters alive. Or actually keep my main character alive. To the point in which, okay, if he's fast enough, that's good. If it makes him tanky, that's good. Everybody can cover for him, but he's like he is like the only character that is the healer. So I'm playing the role of the healer. Think about that. And this healer is not good in combat, but he is good at healing. So when all else fails, he's a character that has to be protected at all times. So therefore, oh hey, I gotta make sure that you're covered. Excuse me. But as I said before, going back to what I said prior to that, no, Don't start hating on the series just because it was done by a company. I mean, everybody's in tough times, and no company is invincible. And what they need are the help of the people. That's all they do. Even though even though they don't know what they're doing, they do need help. So you have to do what you can. That's all there is to it. Aside from that, now we need to do better. That's all it is. That's all it really is. We just need to do better than what we've been doing. So, even though it might be easy for me to say, you can't hate, you really can't hate what they're doing, because they are in a business, and the gaming business is quite rough. Whether you put it to console or you put it onto PC, it's gonna be rough. So, just don't become self-loathing and hating when you play a video game. It doesn't matter if it's a popular franchise or not. Just don't go as far as saying, I hate this company because of A, B, C, and D, and I don't want to be around them because of A. So I think that's all I have to say about that. Or actually, that's all I really have to say about this week. Because as you know, we're still in the Rio Olympics. And of course, like I said, not much I had to say about that because, it's the Olympics. And I don't want to even go into politics because I got too much stupidity on my Facebook feed to listen about politics. And all this goofiness and shit like that there, so I can care less for it. So with that, I think I will close out this episode of the Tenkai Talk. So next week, hopefully something will be better upon the horizon, and possibly we get something positive happening for a change. So I've been your friendly neighborhood Tenkaichi Pookie SE7, and I wish everyone a great, wonderful, and safe weekend. And I'll see you next time for whatever I show on my channel. So, take care, God bless, and as always, Senpai's blessings upon you, my good people, and Tenkai Muso. Until then, see you next game.